A son like Ethan.
Once there was a boy named Ethan who lived in a big mansion. His parents, Chief Matthew and Dr. Rita Okota. They were very wealthy and they gave Ethan everything he wanted. However, they never taught him how to be kind or respectful. Instead, they often ignored his bad behavior. Ethan would shout at the servants and treat them poorly. His parents saw this but thought it was just a phase. When he got into trouble at school for being rude, they would either change his school or make excuses for him instead of addressing his behavior. They showered him with gifts and money, never asking if he really needed anything. This made Ethan believe he was better than everyone else. As he grew up, he became more arrogant and greedy, thinking he deserved everything without effort. Ethan was raised as the sole focus of his parents' attention, showered with every material comfort. When Ethan was 18 years old, Mr. and Mrs. Okota had their second son Alex. This was when they realized their shortcomings and their mistakes in raising Ethan. So they determined to raise Alex differently. But despite their efforts to change Ethan's behavior and belief, he had already developed a sense of entitlement. It was indeed too late. By 20, he flaunted designer brands and lived off his parents' wealth without any responsibility. Graduating from a prestigious university with mediocre grades at 23, he spent a year in national service but learned little about accountability. At 24, thanks to his parents' connections, he landed a job in an oil company, but he was far from ready to embrace adulthood. Instead of committing to his career, Ethan spent nights partying, often waking up with hangovers. His absences became frequent, leading to warnings from his bosses. His parents expressed their frustration, suggesting therapy, but he resisted. His mother eventually persuaded him to attend a session, but he only went once. Ethan's grandmother, Madame Funk, believed the issue was spiritual and insisted he join her for prayers. After weeks of coaxing, he complied, but the experience didn't change him. His reckless lifestyle caught up with him when the company conducted an inspection for ghost workers for 3 days. His colleagues tried to call him but he ignored their calls. After a week of ignoring calls from his colleagues, he returned to find his belongings outside, having been dismissed. It was a wake-up call, but whether Ethan would finally confront his choices remained uncertain. Ethan was a young man who lost his job because he was careless. He didn't take his work seriously, and when his boss fired him, he felt lost and ashamed. When his parents found out he had been fired, they were devastated. His father, Mr. Matthew Okota, was shocked and collapsed right in front of Ethan. They rushed him to the hospital, but his condition worsened, and he suffered a serious heart attack. The family was worried and decided to take him abroad for better treatment. They hoped for a miracle. After many treatments, Mr. Okota still struggled to recover and eventually suffered a full stroke. Despite their hopes and prayers, Mr. Okota passed away at the age of 59. After the tragic death of his father, Ethan seemed unmoved. Instead of feeling sorrow, he became focused on claiming his share of his father's property. At the burial ceremony, he approached his mother, Rita, demanding what he believed was rightfully his. His behavior shocked his family, especially his mother and brother. They were grieving, and Ethan's selfishness added to their pain. The situation grew tense, and even their uncles and his father's kinsmen were drawn into the conflict, siding with Ethan's demands. Fortunately for Rita, Chief Matthew had left a will. It outlined how the estate would be divided, ensuring Ethan wouldn't receive more than he was entitled to. Still, his greed and lack of remorse left a deep rift in the family. While others mourned, Ethan continued to focus on material gain, showing no signs of repentance. The family was left to deal with both their loss and the challenges posed by Ethan's actions. 2 weeks after Chief Matthew's burial, his properties were divided between Ethan, now 25, and his younger brother, Alex, who was only 8. Shortly after the division, Ethan left the family home without telling anyone. He quickly began living a lavish lifestyle, selling his share of the inheritance. Rita, their mother, heard rumors about Ethan's reckless behavior and wasn't surprised. She knew her son well and had already resigned herself to the fact that Ethan was lost. Her heart ached, especially knowing that Alex's future was now at risk. Feeling overwhelmed, Rita sought advice anonymously in a Facebook therapy group. Many suggested that she run away with Alex to protect him from Ethan's influence. But despite her fears, Rita couldn't abandon her son. She loved Ethan deeply, even as he spiraled out of control. A year later, as she watched Ethan sell off every last piece of property, Rita made a difficult decision. To safeguard Alex's future, she would have to take action. She started the process of applying for immigration visas for herself and Alex. I can still stay in touch with Ethan if he wants, she thought, hoping for a chance to reconnect with her son someday. With a heavy heart but a clear purpose, she focused on securing a better life for Alex. A year later, just as Rita and Alex were nearing the end of the immigration process, Ethan returned home. He looked rough and dirty, a stark contrast to the son they once knew. It was clear he had fallen into hard drugs and a reckless lifestyle. Initially, Rita and Alex were frightened. They feared he might be mentally unstable. However, when Ethan finally spoke, they realized he was still their son. He hugged them tightly, pretending to be happy to be back, and claimed he missed them dearly. Rita felt a wave of hope, thinking he had changed, like the prodigal son from the Bible. She quickly prepared a feast to welcome him home. But the next day, Ethan's true colors began to show. He asked for money, claiming he had started a big business with the proceeds from his property sales but was facing challenges. Rita, wanting to support him, gave him the money he requested. Days turned into weeks, and Ethan's excuses multiplied. He spun tales of more troubles, each more elaborate than the last, and Rita kept giving. In just 30 days, he had collected 10 million naira from her. Rita's initial joy began to fade as she realized Ethan hadn't changed at all. He was still the same reckless son, using her kindness to fuel his destructive lifestyle. The burden of her choices weighed heavily on her heart as she struggled to protect Alex and herself from Ethan's growing demands. Rita finally decided enough was enough, she wouldn't give Ethan any more money. This decision sparked an escalation in his behavior. Soon after, Ethan asked for 500,000 naira to celebrate his birthday, but when Rita refused, he sold their new LG smart television worth 5 million naira, just 3.5 years old. When Rita returned from work and discovered what he had done, she offered to give him 1 million naira to get the television back, but Ethan claimed he had sold it for 3.5 million and refused to return the money. 2 days later, 3 different women arrived looking for Ethan, claiming they had children with him. The police arrested him when he refused to take responsibility for the kids and tried to run away. Rita couldn't bear to see her son decay in jail, so she arranged for a settlement. After DNA tests confirmed their paternity, and indeed Ethan was their father, Rita rented a 3-bedroom apartment for the 3 ladies to share. They were okay with it. Rita was in charge of the kids' school fees, clothes and all the basic things. Rita told Ethan that any money he earned should go towards supporting his children, urging him to turn his life around. But Ethan refused her help, continuing down a destructive path. Soon, he had sold nearly everything of value in their home. With no choice left, Rita and Alex moved into a hotel as they searched for a new apartment. Just as they were about to finalize a rental, the US visas came through. Without hesitation, Rita resigned from her job at the hospital. 2 weeks later, she and Alex relocated to America, leaving the chaos of their old life behind. It was a new beginning, and she hoped it would offer them the fresh start they desperately needed. Ethan was determined to sell the family house, but when he searched for the documents, he couldn't find them. Desperate, he forged new ones. However, just as he was about to sell the property using the fake documents, he was arrested. He soon realized that his mother, Rita, had taken precautions to protect their home. Before leaving, Rita had entrusted the house to a local street security agency, paying them to keep watch. She had also hired neighborhood lawyers to secure the property, who then reported Ethan's actions to the nearest police station. Frustrated and unable to access the house, Ethan turned his attention to finding his mother, demanding she give him the real documents. When he couldn't locate her, he visited his baby mamas, hoping they would know her mother's whereabouts. Yes, Mrs. Rita actually told the ladies that she was traveling out the very day she traveled. She saw her grandchildren and also made provision for their well-being while she's away. To Ethan's shock, he learned that his mother had relocated to America with Alex. This news hit him hard, leaving him feeling more isolated and enraged than ever. Without a plan and with his options running out, Ethan was left to confront the reality of his choices and the life he had created. Ethan was very sad after his mother, Mrs. Rita, moved abroad with his brother. He felt left behind and grew more irresponsible and lazy. Instead of focusing on his future, he spent his days aimlessly. In the USA, Rita worried about Ethan's lifestyle. She missed him deeply but didn't know how to help. She decided to be sending him feeding allowance. She also made arrangement with different food vendors to supply food to him because she knew Ethan would starve to death if she doesn't. So food was not Ethan's problem. Rita was always unhappy because of Ethan's condition. Without her notice, the people in her neighborhood has given her a terrible name, Mrs. Sadist. There was a young lady in her neighborhood too. Her name was Peace. She was a student and she lived very close to Mrs. Rita. When Peace heard about the horrible name they gave to Rita, she felt pity for her and she vowed to make her happy someday. Nobody is unhappy without cause, I will find out, she said. Peace stretched a hand of friendship towards Rita. At first, Rita was reluctant because she was a young girl, an 18-year-old girl, but Alex liked her, so Rita was left with no choice. When Rita saw that Peace was a very good girl, she opened up and told her their life history, including Ethan's predicament. Peace felt so bad for Rita and encouraged her to start going to church. Rita decided to give it a try and began attending the Peace's church. Years later, as Rita continued to pray for Ethan, memories flooded back. She remembered how she had desperately prayed for a child after 3 years of marriage. She had vowed to raise him well and guide him to serve God. After her prayers, Ethan was born, and shortly after, her husband, Matthew, received a big contract. Their lives changed completely. But as they became busy with material things, she stopped attending church and neglected her promise. I failed myself, Rita cried, kneeling down to ask God for forgiveness. Driven by love for her son, Rita resolved to reconnect with Ethan. She prayed for guidance, hoping to bring him back to the values she once promised to instill. With faith and determination, she knew she had to reach out, believing that their bond could heal, no matter how far apart they were. Indeed, Ethan has gone to the dark side to acquire quick wealth. In his desperation, one day, as he was using his social media app, he came about a native doctor who was advertising quick wealth with no human blood or sacrifice and repercussion. He was so interested. After all, no human blood and no repercussion, Ethan said happily. He quickly called the native doctor's number that was displayed on the screen. The man picked the call and asked him to come to a certain village far from Lagos, his location. At first, he was discouraged because the place was very far and everything he had heard about the village was scary. What if I go there and they use me for rituals instead, he said. So he decided not to go. 2 weeks later, he met his old colleague Felix in a mall with a very beautiful and latest model car. He looked so fresh and handsome that Ethan even asked him if he traveled out of the country. Felix said no. "I'm still in that same office you left me, oh. He laughed. Then, he told Ethan he was promoted the very day Ethan and some other guys were fired. "Why did they promote you?" Ethan asked. "I was consistent and diligent with my job. I was even sent abroad to study for 1 year. All expenses paid by the company. My monthly salary is approximately 4 million. Felix concluded. Instead of Ethan to be happy for Felix and seek help from him, or maybe help him to return back to the company, he hissed and left Felix angrily. Felix was not shocked. Ethan has not changed one bit, even after this years. "I forgot Ethan hate good news," Felix said, and he drove off. When Ethan got home, he was so angry and he started destroying things. "Imagine that small boy of yesterday, rising shoulders for me, boosting for me, Ethan. How much does he have?" he said. That night, he made up his mind to visit the native doctor in the remote village. "Life is risk," he said. The next day, he set for the journey. After 12 hours he got to the village of Izozo. With the help of the native doctor who directed him all through the journey with phone calls. When he got to the capital of the state, the native doctor sent someone to pick him up. When Ethan got to the native doctor's shrine, what he thought was free was not free as advertised. Terms and conditions were applied. He was asked to bring the hair of his blood relative, either child, parent or sibling. And the person will die. But he refused, but it was too late. The native doctor told him that, if he leaves and not return in 3 days, he will die. On hearing this, Ethan left hurriedly. He planned to use any of his children's hair and blood. "I can have more children with 10 different women if I want." But something happened. The last time Ethan went to visit them was when he was looking for his mother, Rita. When he learned that she has traveled, he believed his mother will be sending them money because she loved those children so much, so every time, she will meet his baby mamas to give him the money his mother sent to them. Every time, he was extorting money from them. When Mrs. Rita found out, she was so sad, she offered to take the children abroad. Luckily, their mothers accepted, because 2 of them were about to get married and they knew their children will have better lives with their grandmother. "After all, who know like better things," one of the Ethan's baby mama said. And Mrs. Rita also promised them that, in due time, she will process their visas too so that they can also visit their children. Mrs. Rita took that decision not because it was easy for her but because, by all means, she didn't want Ethan's children to grow up under his influence. "I must not make the same mistake twice. If this is what it will take me, I will do it," she said. The visa processing did not take too long. In 6 months, Rita's grandchildren visas were ready. She came and took the kids abroad herself. She tried to see Ethan but his number was switched off. It was one of those days, he will drink himself to stumble and don't know where he is for 2 days. Rita went to his house but their door was locked so she had no other choice but to leave without seeing her son, Ethan. Before Rita left, she asked the ladies if she should leave the apartment for them. She offered to pay the house rent continually but they thanked her and they told her, they will rather go back to their homes respectively. "2 of us are getting married soon," one of them said. Back to Ethan, Ethan rushed to the baby mama's apartment, to cut one of his children's hair. But he was surprised to see another person in the apartment. "Who are you?" the man asked. Ethan was so angry, thinking it was his baby mama's boyfriend. "Get out of my way," he went inside. The man was shocked. When he entered the living room, the place was silent and the chairs and the things changed. The kids' pictures were not even on the wall. "Where are my kids?" Ethan asked, Where is Juliet and the rest people in this house? Now the man understood and said, I can see you were the previous tenant or you are looking for the previous tenants. Please go and ask the landlord, I rented this apartment 2 months ago. Ethan screamed. He rushed out, he came back, rudely requested for the landlord's phone number. The man still gave him the number and he left without saying thank you. Immediately, Ethan called the landlord, and he told Ethan, they packed out 3 months ago and they didn't tell him their whereabouts. Ethan went straight to one of the baby mama's family house and she told Ethan everything. Ethan was so angry. That very day, being it the last day, he rushed to the native doctor's place for an alternative. Your manhood or your lifespan. If you use your manhood, you will be very wealthy, but you will never use your manhood again. If you use your lifespan, you will be very wealthy too, but you will live for only 15 years. If you choose none of them, you will die. The native doctor said. Ethan objected, but this was not what you advertised on. The native doctor laughed and said, all that glitters is not gold, my son. If I tell people about the rituals, nobody will come here. He continued laughing. Ethan agreed to use his manhood, but the native doctor refused. You already used it to bear children, so it won't work. The native doctor said. Ethan reluctantly used his lifespan. After the rituals, the native doctor gave him 2 big sack bags and asked him to keep them in his personal bedroom. No one must see the bags, else the charm and your sacrifice will be in vain. You will be coming for sanctification 3 times a year, the rest things, I will tell you on phone. The native doctor concluded. Ethan doesn't have anybody in his house, so he didn't bother. As instructed, when he got home, he kept the bags in his bathroom. He was so tired, so he decided to rest a little before he take his bath, then he slept off. He didn't wake till 12 p.m. the next day. He woke up feeling so exhausted and hungry. He went to bathroom. As he used the toilet, he didn't even remember the bags. He went straight to the kitchen, picked bread and Coke, as he was eating. All of a sudden, he remembered the bags. Immediately he ran to the bathroom. He even fell down on the staircase. When he entered the bathroom, the bags were not there. He quickly went downstairs to see, he forgot to lock the door. But the doors were locked. He ran back to his room. And he started screaming. I have been dumped. No way. That old man played me. He called the native doctor. His number was not reachable, so Ethan decided to go back to the native doctor's village. When Ethan opened the wardroom to pick his clothes, he saw the big bags inside the wardroom and he started wondering how it got there. Then he also noticed that his clothes were not there too. The bags also looked as if something was inside. He tried to carry the bag, but it was too heavy. With all his strength, he pushed the bags down the wardroom. When he opened the first bag, he screamed. See money, oh oh oh. Money in different currencies were in the bags. Even the currencies Ethan doesn't know. That was how his lifestyle changed again to the one he lived when his father was alive. He started ballin'. He went back to the lifestyle he was used to. And even became worse. He started buying luxury cars, houses, etc. The first thing he did was to stop picking his mother's calls. Now I don't want her again, Ethan said. Meanwhile, Ethan was living a lavish life and had suddenly become rich. He was the talk of the town, and news reached Rita. How did he get all that money? She wondered, feeling a mix of confusion and concern. She knew something was wrong. She reached out to Ethan, but he refused to see his mother. Then he messaged his mother that he has severed all ties with her, Alex, and his own children. One day, Mrs. Rita sent one of Ethan's cousin Peter to him, but Ethan ordered the gate man to send him away. My bad mother took my brother Alex to America, and she abandoned me here to suffer, She thought I will die. No. I'm alive. This money, you people will not smell it. Ethan said. And Peter, who was still outside, heard everything. Even Ethan's mother, who was on the phone with Peter, heard too, and she begged Peter to tell Ethan to at least pick her calls. From outside, Peter begged Ethan to pick his mother's calls, but Ethan screamed from his compound and warned him to leave the front of his house, else he will send his dogs after him. When Peter heard that, he ran for his dear life. So for many years Rita didn't get in touch with his son, Ethan. 14 years later, Rita's mother died, and the burial was fixed immediately because she ordered her children to bury her fast when she dies. That she didn't want the mortuary to dry her like smoked fish. Before that time, Ethan's grandmother has relocated back to her husband's village in Edo State. Even before Ethan's father died. Now it was exactly 4 months to 15 years that he used his lifespan for money rituals. As usual, when he visited the native doctor for his sanctification, he was reminded of the time he's left to live on earth. So the native doctor asked him to enjoy more and prepare to die in 4 months' time. He was not shocked or scared because he has always numbered his days. He went back, he doubled everything. He was literally living in clubs, moving from one country to another. A week to Ethan's grandmother's burial ceremony, Rita, Alex, and Ethan's children came back from America. Rita sent another of Ethan's cousin Lovett to Ethan's house again. To tell him that his brother and his children are around. Even though he doesn't want to see me, he will definitely love to see his kids and only brother. Rita said. When Lovett got there, he learned that Ethan was no longer living there, but the gateman told her he just bought another house in the same estate. And he gave Lovett the house address. Lovett went there and told the security man that she was Ethan's relative. She begged to see him without his prior notice. Okay, let me call him, the security said. And the security allowed her into the compound because it was raining and she didn't come with a car. When the gate man informed his boss Ethan, he was so upset. From the terrace, he asked Lovett to leave his house immediately, else he will shoot her. Lovett started begging him. She begged and begged. And she reminded Ethan that they used to be very close where they were young, but Ethan interrupted her. You people left me when my father died because I didn't have money again. No, Lovett interrupted him too and said, we left you because you weren't serious. You were rude and disrespectful just the way you are now. Ethan interrupted her again this time. He was so angry because he hated to be corrected. Because I'm rich, that is why you want me now. Ethan said. Lovett laughed. She started speaking their native Igbo language because he didn't want the gate man to understand her. Your money, which money? Even if you give me now, I won't take it because it is not clean. You and I know that. You think we don't know? Lovett laughed. You remember Chidi? Our childhood friend, who had the same character like you. The same native doctor who gave you wealth, did his too. You know, right? You must have met 1 or 2 times in his place. Are you aware he's dead? When Chidi was sick with the deadly illness he was infected with by your same native doctor because he tried to seek for help elsewhere, so that he won't die at his appointed time, Peter visited him and he confessed everything to him before he died. He died in Peter's arms. We know you have a short time too. We have not told your mother because we don't want her to die. Ethan, you still have a little time, come back home, let's see how we can help you. You must have given up already, but things might change. God might show you mercy. And if you must even die, why not die peacefully? Why not live the remaining days or months with your loved ones? You own children, you have not seen them for many years. You have seen your brother. Even the blood money you have made, you are wasting it allow. So what's the essence? You care about only yourself. Ethan, Your selfishness is in the highest region. You know your mom and your brother don't hate you, they only ran away from you because you made their lives a living hell. The remaining days you have, spend it wisely. Think about it, Ethan. Lovett concluded and left. That day, Ethan was calm. He cancelled all his appointments and for the first time in many years, he had a quiet reflection of his life. Yes, everything was my fault, he said. He picked his phone to call his mother. Immediately his mother, Rita, picked the call. He ended it and switched off his phone. It's too late. There's nothing she can do about it. I must not involve them in any of my mistakes anymore. I have done enough, Ethan concluded. The next day, Ethan vowed not to waste his money anymore. So he promised to will whatever he's left with for his mother, brother and children. He didn't know if it was safe for him to will his properties and money to his family, so he went to the native doctor's house to consult and check. The native doctor told him, for that to be possible, his lifespan will reduce from 4 months to 4 days. Ethan screamed angrily, "You never told me that. I just decided to ask, what if I was giving them money all this while?" "I should have known, you should have told me," Ethan said. "You come for sanctification every 4 months, what do I check? If you have erred, you are supposed to give your family but little. Even in your death, they are not supposed to take everything. Now you want to give them everything, so you will have to pay for it," the native doctor concluded. Ethan murmured. "Okay, the 4 days is not bad. At least my family will never lack again." The native doctor sanctified him for the last ritual, as he was about to go. The native doctor called him and hugged him. Ethan was surprised. "You have never hugged before, are you pitying for me now?" Ethan asked him. The native doctor burst into tears. "I have 1 more day too," Ethan screamed. "What?" The native doctor tearfully told him that was his repercussion for his deeds too. "You have your time too. What will happen to your shrine?" Ethan asked. "I don't know. I didn't force my children to follow my footsteps. If anyone chose to follow, that is all for him or her." They hugged again. And the native doctor told Ethan, "If there's a reincarnation in your next life, be good. Be content and be responsible." Till Ethan got home, he couldn't take his mind off what the native doctor told him. "Yes, I was not responsible, I was not good and I was not content. That's why I'm here," he said, and he cried bitterly that night. The next day, Ethan called his lawyers and he transferred all his wealth to his mother, brother and children. And that very day was his grandmother's burial. In the village in Edo State, the burial ceremony was going on. Rita's mother has been buried and the children were dancing when Ethan suddenly arrived. Rita, Alex and Ethan's children ran and hugged him. They all started crying. After the ceremony, Ethan flew back to Lagos that very day and he promised to see his family when they returned to Lagos. Rita, Alex and Ethan's children planned to stay in the village for 1 week before. Because of Ethan, they changed their plan and they left the village next day after the burial. Immediately they got to Lagos, Rita called Ethan and his number was switched off. Ethan has locked himself in the room waiting for his dead. Before he did that, he paid his gate man and servants off and he told them he was traveling out of the country. As Ethan's phone was switched off, Ethan's mother Rita was worried. She wanted to go to Ethan's house that night but Alex stopped her that it was too late. So she decided to go the next morning. The next day was supposed to be Ethan's last day on earth. Ethan woke up, he had his bath and ate. He thought that he will need energy to walk through the land of the death. After eating he sat in the living room and started thinking about all that has happened in his life again, while his phone was still off. That morning, Rita called Lovett to accompany her to Ethan's house. Lovett brought her husband car to pick her up. As they were going, Lovett couldn't hold on to the secret Peter told her about Ethan, so she opened up and told Rita. Lovett was surprised that Rita did not scream or she was not amazed. Rita noticed and smiled. "My dear, I know my son's wealth is not pure. He is not working. He sold all his inheritance before we left to America and he is not ready to work or sweat for money. Then how will he make money if he's not on the wrong side? I know. But I'm praying to God to show him mercy. And secondly, I have been so close to God and I have been seeing revelations concerning him." As they were talking, Peace called Rita and told her she's in Nigeria and she asked her to send her Ethan's house address. Rita was shocked. "Ethan, what are you doing in Nigeria?" But Peace asked her to leave that one first, that they don't have that time. Immediately, she sent Peace Ethan's house address. Peace was the young girl who pushed Rita to God many years ago. Now, she already has a ministry. And so many years, Rita and Peace has been praying for Ethan. 3 days before the day Peace arrived in Nigeria, she saw a revelation and she was asked go to Nigeria to save Ethan, and in the same revelation, she was told that Ethan was her husband and Ethan is also destined to be a pastor and serve God with her in her ministry. Peace didn't doubt, but she said she didn't have a Nigeria visa, that if everything is true, the visa should be approved in 24 hours. She applied for the visa online. 2 hours later, the revelation was confirmed. The visa was granted immediately and she went to stamp it. Immediately, she booked her flight. Rita and Lovett arrived in Ethan's house. The gate was locked and there was no gate man. "The last time I came, I met a gate man," Lovett said. "The gate is a model gate, there was no padlocks for them to know whether Ethan was in or out." "I don't think Ethan is at home," Lovett said. Rita knew something was wrong. For Peace to be in Nigeria because of Ethan, there is still hope. God will show Ethan mercy. Then Rita burst into tears. "Could it be, his time has come?" Lovett said. "I don't understand," Rita said. As Lovett was about to explain, Peace arrived. "Where's Ethan?" she said. "We don't know if he's around." Rita and Lovett said simultaneously. "Call his name. Shout it." "We don't have time," Peace said. Rita started calling Ethan's name. Ethan saw her mother Rita and Lovett when they just arrived because they horned for the gate man to open for them that time. Ethan purposely kept quiet. All the time they were knocking, Ethan was looking at time through the terrace window and he was crying bitterly. Rita and Lovett continued to call his name. Ethan didn't answer. It was so loud that the neighbors came outside angrily. One of them said, "Madam, call him or come back later instead of barking like a dog." Rita ignored and continued calling her son. Another neighbor came out and he threatened to call the estate securities to chase them out. Then Lovett begged him and told them it was a thing of life and death. Ethan saw everything and refused to open the door. Peace, who was quiet all this while, calmly called Ethan's full name, asking him to open the door. Her voice was so soothing and calm. "Who's that woman? She even knows my full name," Ethan said. He tried to resist her but he couldn't any longer. Immediately he ran down and opened the gate. Immediately Ethan opened the gate. Rita was about to talk, but Peace stopped her and told her to hold on. "We don't have time." She dragged Ethan inside while the rest people ran after them. Ethan was shocked. When they got to the living room, Ethan fell to her mother's feet and he started crying, begging for her forgiveness. Peace stopped her. "Leave the earthly one first, your mother has forgiven you long time ago. You have few minutes to accept God or the stick with your devil." Ethan accepted God and he prayed that God should forgive him and accept him in his right hand. Then Ethan turned to her mother and he told her that he has few minutes to live. When Rita heard that, she fainted. As Ethan was running to help her mother, Peace stopped him and asked him to continue to pray for mercy. "Pray, Ethan, continue to pray for mercy." Peace screamed. All of a sudden, he fainted. Peace was praying. Lovett quickly poured water on Rita's body and she woke up. When she saw her lifeless son on the floor, she fainted again. Then Peace asked Lovett to leave Rita and start praying, else she will carry what she didn't come with. They prayed and prayed till midnight. Rita and Ethan were still unconscious. Lovett was so tired that she slept off too. Lovett woke up the next day and she was surprised that Peace was still praying. Rita was still unconscious while Ethan was awake but was behaving abnormally. He will bark like a dog, then cry like a baby, then behave like a mad person. Lovett was even scared. For few minutes, Peace stopped praying and she asked Lovett to go home, that her husband was worried. He called utility phone and Mrs. Rita's phone went off. "Also go and take care of your newborn baby and yours quests, which are Alex and Ethan's children." Peace said. "How did you know I have a newborn baby?" Lovett asked. Peace smiled and she continued her prayers. So Lovett went home as instructed while Peace continued her prayers. 12 hours later, Rita woke up and she didn't see Ethan and Peace. She thought Ethan has died and Peace has taken him to the mortuary. Then she fell on the floor and started crying. Ethan has been delivered. He was so exhausted, so Peace took him to the kitchen to find food for them. Ethan suggested they take Rita to the hospital but Peace refused. She will wake up at the right time. She wasn't supposed to witness everything that happened, else she might die. Peace said. When they finished taking the cereals, they went up to see Rita. When Rita realized Ethan was alive, she fell down and started praising God. "I have been giving a second chance," Ethan said. Peace gave Rita some cereal and water. Later they all went to bed. That night, when Ethan was sleeping, he heard another encounter with God. That morning, he told Peace and her mother Rita the revelation. That was exactly the revelation Peace heard in America. Peace confirmed it and Rita fell to the floor and started praising God. Ethan also had a revelation of what should happen to his wealthy. 30% of all his wealth should be given to charity. 50% should be used for worldwide evangelism while he keeps only 20% for himself and family. Ethan obeyed accordingly. Ethan turned a new leaf. He started doing good things. He even went to a pastoral school and he becomes a pastor. 2 years later, Peace and Ethan got married. Rita, Alex, Ethan's children and the entire family were happy that Ethan had changed to a better person. In no time, Ethan has become a great evangelist. Peace and Ethan preach all over the world. Every opportunity Ethan has, he preach and advise people to train up their children in the right way, else it will turn to a generational problem. Every time, he used himself as an example for the world to see and hear what God can do. A home that was once shattered became a beautiful, lovely and peaceful home. They all lived happily ever after. The end.